Oh.
That's pretty good. You have that many people here this close to.
Yeah. So. Good morning. The Small Business Committee will come to order. Today's order of business is to consider the views and estimates of the Committee on Small Business for fiscal year 2021. These resources are a critical first step in helping entrepreneurs launch and grow their small business. The purpose of this meeting is to set our priorities and expectations for fiscal year 2021 to ensure the Small Business Administration has the funding necessary to modernize and strengthen its core programs on behalf of America's entrepreneurs. While the economy has appeared healthy, much uncertainty remains now with the coronavirus outbreak. Just last week, the stock market plunged, suffering some of the worst losses since the 2008 financial crisis. Small businesses throughout the country currently face looming supply chain disruptions, while consumer confidence is diminishing. As the virus spreads, it has the potential to significantly dampen global economic activity both here and abroad. With the threat to the economy, more entrepreneurs and small business owners are looking toward the Small Business Administration and its many programs for help. SBA core programs ensure small employers and aspiring entrepreneurs have the counseling, financing, and access to the federal marketplace they deserve. Ensuring this program have robust levels of funding and operate effectively are a top priority for the committee. Today's views and estimates reiterates the committee's long-standing position to prioritize core programs like the Small Business Development Centers and the 7A loan program, rather than expending critical funding on untested agency-initiated programs. To that end, the views and estimates proposal supports increased levels of funding for the entrepreneurial development programs, which provide free or low-cost counseling and training to nearly 1 million entrepreneurs each year. The committee enacted bipartisan legislation last year to modernize the programs and maximize their effectiveness. Fully funding SBA's entrepreneurial development programs will strengthen the SBA's ecosystem and allow SBA to provide valuable counseling and training to more small businesses. We must also ensure Main Street businesses have access to affordable capital, which plays a vital role in their success. Affordable capital is the key to unlocking opportunities to grow and create new jobs in the local economy, and this proposal provides the requisite resources and funding levels to do just that. Finally, we have to work together to level the playing field in federal procurement opportunities for socially and economically disadvantaged business owners. We can achieve this through a greater emphasis on hiring more contracting personnel and providing them with adequate training in order to effectively assist small contractors competing in the $500 billion federal marketplace. The views and estimates we are proposing will breathe new life into the SBA. More importantly, it will provide tangible benefits to small businesses and make sure taxpayers get a positive return on their investment. At this point, I will yield to the ranking member, Mr. Chabot, for any comments he may have on the committee's views and estimates.
I want to first thank Chairwoman Velasquez and her staff for, again, working in a bipartisan manner on the committee's budget views and estimates on the Small Business Administration's fiscal year 2021 budget. I appreciate her willingness to work collegially as we meet our responsibilities to America's small businesses. The SBA and its programs can be essential to helping small firms expand, create jobs, and grow our economy. The SBA helps many small businesses to access capital, provides counseling and training, and links entrepreneurs with mentors. In this committee, it's our responsibility to provide our views and estimates to the Committee on the Budget to ensure that the SBA's programs are working efficiently and effectively on behalf of all small businesses all across this nation. We must insist that the programs are transparent and make the best use of taxpayer dollars. Every small business starts as an idea. America is a nation of creators and investors and risk takers. Our economy was structured to be driven by entrepreneurs, and in fact, most net new job growth is from startups and new businesses. In fact, about 70% of the new jobs created in the American economy are created by America's small businesses. We're fortunate to have the SBA's new administrator, Jovita Carranza, to lead the agency into the future. She has a distinguished record both in the private sector as well as having been the deputy SBA administrator under President George W. Bush. We look forward to seeing her vision in action. The chairwoman and I very often agree, but there are times when we don't fully agree, and thus, even though I will be voting for the committee's budget views and estimates, I'll also be offering a motion later to submit additional views and estimates from the minority members of this committee. And again, I want to thank the chairwoman for working in a bipartisan manner with us, both staffs working together very well, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back, and I thank him for his remarks. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for a statement on the views and estimates of the committee for fiscal year 2021? Seeing no members, the committee now moves to consideration of the views and estimates. The clerk will read the title of the document.
Views and estimates of the Committee on Small Business
I
on
ask
Matters.
unanimous consent that the views and estimate be considered as read and open for amendment in its entirety. Does any member seek recognition for the purpose of offering an amendment? Seeing no amendments, we will move on. And the question is on adopting the views and estimates on the priorities of the committee for fiscal year 2021. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the views and estimates are agreed to. I will now recognize the ranking member for the purpose of making a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and I would move that the minority members of the committee be permitted to file additional views and estimates on the budget for fiscal year 2021.
Without objection to order.
Thank you.
And the committee is authorized to make technical and grammatical corrections to the views and estimates. We are adjourned, and the committee will stand in recess for a few moments to prepare for the committee hearing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
is the clerk, the lady that is here. Okay. Good morning. The committee will come to order. I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning, especially our witnesses for taking time to travel here to testify before our committee. The key to long-term growth in our economy is to make sure we're creating an environment that encourages innovation. That is why since last January, we have held hearings on how the digital ecosystem promotes entrepreneurship, how small firms are leading the way in the clean energy economy, and solutions to decrease barriers for women and minorities seeking patents and trademarks. Today's hearing is another topic I am excited to explore, on how blockchain technology is being used to support entrepreneurship and small business growth. I know that when most people hear about blockchain, they automatically think of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. While blockchain is the technology that enables the existence of cryptocurrency, by no means is that the only use. As a member of the Financial Services Committee, I have heard firsthand how blockchain technology is being utilized in payment processing by large banks and insurance companies. Today, we have an opportunity to hear from small businesses that are using blockchain technology to reduce costs, increase efficiencies, disrupt industries, and grow their businesses. As we all know, the Internet, once the realm of hobbyists and cutting-edge tech experts, has grown into a mainstream driver of economic growth and efficiency. Yet much of the power of the Internet is concentrated in a few multi-billion-dollar companies such as Facebook, Google, and Amazon, who gather large amounts of data on consumers and dominate marketplaces. In fact, many small businesses rely on these large corporations for advertising, e-commerce, distributing their products, cybersecurity, and cloud computing. Much like when a Walmart comes to town, it is challenging for small businesses and entrepreneurs to compete against these massive corporations. Blockchain technology can help small businesses compete on a more level playing field with larger corporations by streamlining operations, reducing reliance on costly third-party intermediaries, and boosting cybersecurity networks. By developing or deploying blockchain effectively, the technology can have a positive financial impact on small businesses. Over the last decade, there has been a frenzy of investment and entrepreneurship around blockchains. Innovators and small businesses are at the forefront of a wide variety of blockchain-based technological applications in nearly every sector of our economy, including healthcare, the clean energy sector, financial services, transportation, and logistics. The international competition has begun. Many other countries have invested in blockchain research and initiated coordinated frameworks. Congress must do our part to make sure that the United States remains a leader in blockchain development and engagement. Because blockchain technology has a wide variety of applications, there are a number of federal agencies that have been looking at the uses of blockchain technology, including the SEC, the CFTC, and even the IRS. However, many of these efforts are not coordinated between agencies, leaving uncertainty for businesses and entrepreneurs. We must make sure that the federal government adopts policies that support blockchain technology as it becomes a driver of wider economic growth and efficiency. There is a need for a coordinated framework to balance the need for regulation while still supporting innovation and providing clarity and predictability for businesses and entrepreneurs. Today's hearing is a chance for us to go beyond the hype to understand the benefits and challenges of blockchain technology. Our panel today represents a diverse set of expertise and viewpoints that will provide insight into some of the areas where blockchain is having an impact on small businesses. I look forward to the testimony and discussion. I will now like to yield to the ranking member, Mr. Shabo, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Technology is continuously being developed to meet the needs of a rapidly changing world. From the development of the assembly line to the credit card to the virtually universal use of the Internet, businesses are continually adapting to the world around them in order to remain competitive and provide for their customers. Businesses embrace technological advancements in order to reduce costs, streamline processes, increase productivity, and maximize customer satisfaction. Though technological advancements may be difficult for some to learn and adopt, our most innovative minds are searching for ways to do better. Our free market thrives on this continued innovation. Blockchain technologies are one of the newest advancements with the potential to create a positive impact on businesses, consumers, and our economy. It's important to examine this growing field in order to learn more about the potential security benefits and cost reductions. Of course, as with all new technologies, we must be aware of any potential challenges that could adversely impact individuals or businesses, especially small businesses. Today, we'll hear what the complex world of blockchain technology has to offer our small businesses and gain a broader understanding of the benefits and challenges associated with this technology. I want to thank the chairwoman for holding this hearing and for inviting in fact, two witnesses from America's greatest state, Ohio. So thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. And if committee members have an opening statement prepared, we would ask that they be submitted for the record. I would like to take a minute to explain the timing rules. Each witness gets 5 minutes to testify, and each member gets 5 minutes for questioning. There is a lighting system to assist you. The green light will be on when you begin, and the yellow light will come on when you have 1 minute remaining. The red light will come on, and that means that the time is out, and we ask that you stay within that time frame to the best of your ability. I would now like to introduce our witnesses. Our first witness is Mr. Shane Bigelow, the CEO of Upnoon. Upnoon Companies, Champ Titles, and Vital Chain aim to bring more efficiency to vital records by converting paper-based processes to digital formats using blockchain technology. Prior to joining Upnoon, Mr. Bigelow was a senior vice president and managing director at Bernstein, where he managed U.S. business and served on the firm's Responsible Investment Committee. Thank you for being here. Our second witness is Ms. Dawn Dixon. Ms. Dixon is the CEO of Popcom, an automated retail company that uses blockchain to help collect customer insights. As a serial entrepreneur with over 16 years of experience in marketing and business development, Ms. Dixon launched 4 successful companies since 2002. Her most recent ventures include Flat Out of Hills and Popcom. Thank you for your testimony and for being here today. Our third witness is Mr. Marvin Amory, the General Counsel of Protocol Labs. Protocol Labs is a research, development, and deployment institution for improving Internet technology. Using an open-source approach to creation, Protocol Labs focuses on building systems and tools to improve how the Internet works. Mr. Amory is a leading First Amendment lawyer and Internet policy expert. Prior to joining Protocol, he was a legal fellow at the New America Foundation, an affiliate scholar at Stanford Law School, and law professor at Nebraska. He was also the head lawyer for Free Press and has been a leading legal advocate in advancing network neutrality. We appreciate you being here today. And now I yield to the ranking member, Mr. Shabo, to introduce our final witness.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Our final witness is Jim Harper. He's not one of our 2 Ohio witnesses, but he's still pretty good. Mr. Harper is a visiting fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, AEI, Before joining AEI, he worked at the Competitive Enterprise Institute and the Cato Institute. Previously, he served as counsel for the House Judiciary Committee's Subcommittee on Commercial and Administrative Law and as counsel for the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. Mr. Harper received his BA from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and his JD from University of California's Hastings College of Law, and we welcome you here this morning, Mr. Harper. We welcome all the witnesses.
Mr. Bigelow, now you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chair Velasquez, Ranking Member Shabbat, and members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to participate on this important topic. I'm Shane McGran Bigelow, the CEO of Onum. Today I'm appearing on behalf of the Chamber of Digital Commerce, as well as my company Onum, to offer our specific experiences in starting a small business that improves the lives of consumers by providing quicker and more efficient access to vital records and enhances public safety in doing so. In the United States, our vital records are used to demonstrate ownership, citizenship, birthright, and much more. However, acquiring these important documents is cumbersome because these records are largely paper-based. For most Americans, this is an annoyance at best and debilitating at worst. For the poorest in our nation, a group disproportionately tilted towards minorities, vital record acquisition and maintenance can represent the worst in life. From a mother who is trapped in an abusive relationship with her husband because he is holding her and their children's birth certificates and other important documents hostage, to a title loan store that is pressuring a downtrodden individual to relinquish his or her vehicle title in exchange for an exceedingly high interest rate loan. Vital records are regularly at the epicenter of physical and economic disadvantage in our most vulnerable communities. Further, our government process today requires considerable paperwork and, more importantly, time spent in DMV lines or Department of Health lines in each state in our union. This requires time away from employment and is an event that requires transportation, something that studies indicate our poorest communities lack in quality form in much of our nation. It could easily be said that the process to acquire vital records in this country is discriminatory. The question, of course, becomes why. In this age of technology where we have an abundance of cell phones and readily available internet access, do we still require such antiquated processes as filling out paperwork, spending hours in long lines, and physically showing up at inconvenient locations, all while missing work? We have failed to become fully digital because there has been no incentive to change. The ecosystem around vital records, banks, insurance companies, hospital systems, etc., have accepted the legacy process of using paper as a cost of doing business. That was acceptable 20 years ago when our technology could not fully support a digital process, but that is unacceptable today. At Onum, we aim to change all of that. Onum is a holding company that was started by Bernie Moreno and me approximately 2 years ago. Under Onum, other companies are created, each with a similar goal. That goal is to digitize a particular vital record and the process to acquire it. No paper, anywhere, anytime. Our first company is Champ Titles, which can be found at champtitles.com, where we're digitizing vehicle titles. The second company is Vital Chain, found at vitalchain.com, which is digitizing birth and death certificates. Each uses blockchain technology to improve accuracy, efficiency, and fight fraud. Onum's use of blockchain technology is why we were invited to be here today. But sadly, the use of blockchain is often at the source of the most confusion and biggest delays for government. Unlike in the 90s and 2000s, when government promoted business and fostered the internet boom, today our governments seem to be doing the opposite with anything related to blockchain. This is where this committee can be of great help to any small business or startup working with blockchain technology today. If state governments were encouraged to pursue digitization like what the IRS did when they allowed a multitude of vendors to replace paper tax filing with digital filing, that would be a great step forward. The states need an incentive to allow vendors like us to send in and transact completely in digital form the information they currently acquire and transact in paper form. Ideally, the outcomes Onum seeks are as follows. Help the poorest in our country to gain better access to their vital records in a secure way by encouraging federal and state governments to allow for the digitization of not only their vital records, but the process to acquire them. Use this committee's paper reduction authority to promote the digitization of paper-based vital records at the state and federal level in areas where government services are involved. Provide financial aid to small businesses seeking to provide digitization of records, incentivize state governments to adopt digitized vital records, and affirm publicly that the Federal eSign Act applies across all 50 states to blockchain technology and other emerging tech. By recommitting, as we did during the internet boom, to focus our government at all levels on what a technology enables, we will help our government to pursue digitization strategies for vital records. Doing so will enable many startups and small businesses like us to build the next generation of the innovative and entrepreneurial culture in America today. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bigelow. Now, Ms. Dixon, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman, Ranking Member, and the members of the committee. It is an honor to be here today to represent the great state of Ohio. I am Dawn Dixon, a small business owner for 20 years. I am what most call a serial entrepreneur. I am driven and passionate about business ownership and identifying resources to move my companies forward. Like many small business owners, I have benefited greatly from SBA programs, including SCORE and Bixel Exchange. In 2016, I won $20,000 in the SBA Innovate Her Challenge, and last year I won $125,000 in the META $1 Million Pitch Competition that is also SBA funded. I own 4 small businesses, but today I will focus on one, Popcom, where I am leveraging blockchain technology for specific aspects of my business. Popcom is a B2B tech startup that develops software and IoT-connected hardware for self-service retail. This includes vending machines and digital kiosks used to dispense products and perform transactions. At Popcom, we're using blockchain to optimize machine-driven transactions for government-regulated products that require identity verification, sales compliance, supply chain information, or a combination of all three. There's a tremendous opportunity in this space, over $3 trillion in global revenue, growing to $5 trillion by 2022. I want to clarify that Popcom is not a blockchain company. We are a technology company that uses facial recognition and artificial intelligence in our software. I am simply using specific blockchain applications for my business. This is an important distinction. Blockchain is not a silver bullet. However, it can solve problems that small businesses face. Instead of building our own proprietary product, we partner with Civic, a secure blockchain identity management platform to age-gate customers to execute purchases of regulated products such as alcohol and cannabis from a vending machine. As a company, we believe the most secure way to check and confirm a customer's identity while ensuring their personal data remains secure is to have the customer verify their information on their mobile device and store that data on the blockchain. We never collect or have access to any of their personal data. We know nothing about or from the customer, and that is the power of blockchain. Blockchain is more than a business tool. It can also be leveraged for fundraising. I know firsthand the challenges that small businesses face when raising traditional and non-traditional capital. In 2016, after I won the SBA Innovate Her Challenge, I still could not qualify for an SBA loan, despite already generating revenue and having excellent credit history. Federal programs are ineffective if they are not accessible to the very small businesses they are created to empower. In 2018, I made the tough decision to turn down $1.5 million in VC investment because it would have meant giving up over half of my business ownership. After we completed our seed round, bringing our funding to close to over $1 million from angel and VC, I decided to do a secure token offering to raise capital and to give people in my community the opportunity to invest in my business. Blockchain technology made this possible through the tokenization of my cap table. A token represents a digital share stored on the blockchain, and it is treated no differently than a traditional stock certificate. However, the token is proof of investment that lives on the blockchain ledger forever and can't be erased or retracted. This gave people comfort and security knowing that their money is safe. In 2019, I became the first female CEO globally to raise over $1 million using equity crowdfunding under Title III Reg CF of the Jobs Act. I leveraged my personal network to raise capital through the STO instead of relying solely on VC and angel investors to fund my business. Access to capital for small businesses has come a long way since I started my first company in 2001. However, more needs to be done to increase this access in order for entrepreneurs to continue to grow, bring products to market, and create jobs. Congress is in a position to address these issues, and this committee can lead the way. There are few financial institutions that will capitalize enterprises that are using blockchain. The National Policy Network of Women of Color in Blockchain has developed a legislative proposal to create a federally backed SBA 7A loan for entrepreneurs and small businesses who are using blockchain technology. This unique SBA 7A loan could help level the playing field for all businesses. Congress should consider blockchain and cryptocurrency as a part of the solution and advance policies that will benefit small business owners like me. I hope you will continue to engage diverse voices as you deliberate legislative priorities to ensure entrepreneurs can innovate, build, and grow right here at home. Again, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this important debate on behalf of the millions of constituents across the nation that this committee is tasked to empowering.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Mr. Amori, now you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairwoman Velasquez, Ranking Member Shabbat, and other members of the committee for inviting me here today. I'm Marvin Amori, testifying on behalf of the Blockchain Association. I head legal and policy at a member company called Protocol Labs. Protocol Labs was founded in 2015 and now has more than 117 employees and contractors across 36 states and 16 countries. This year, my company plans to launch the Filecoin Protocol, which is software designed to create a vibrant marketplace for online data storage. And blockchain technology is one key enabler of that marketplace. So let's begin with blockchain technology. When you cut through the hype, a blockchain is essentially a data structure. So think of a database, a ledger, or a spreadsheet. Now, why is there so much hype for a better spreadsheet? Because a blockchain stays up to date and in sync based on software rules and community agreement. So one person or one company does not choose how to update the entries in the spreadsheet. Rather, all or a specific number of computers in a network will agree to make the update together. So you might prefer a blockchain instead of a traditional database or ledger if you'd rather trust a consensus of multiple actors versus trusting one single record keeper. It's that simple. So the invention of blockchains can affect industries far beyond money listed in a ledger, including healthcare, supply chain, vital records, and anywhere else you would want multiple people making a consensus, including enabling competition in internet infrastructure, such as services like cloud storage. So the Filecoin network will be a marketplace for buying and selling cloud storage. For decades, computer scientists and law professors have written about the resilience benefits of a programmable, efficient market for storing data, where people who have extra hard drive space on their phone or in their data center could rent that storage securely and efficiently to others who wanted access to that storage. Our software will be open source, and anyone will be able to download it for free to broadcast their desire to buy and sell hard drive space. In the Filecoin network, a blockchain will record the storage market transactions. As a result, nobody will be needed as a middleman, including us, to manage the marketplace. Anyone can rely on software rules and underlying that mathematics for the marketplace. So how can Filecoin and the blockchain underlying it benefit small businesses? First, creating a marketplace in online storage may drive down the cost of data storage, which is a real cost for almost every business in every sector. Businesses need reliable and secure places to store data as much as they need electricity. And many of them pay cloud storage providers to hold and serve that data from their data centers. If Filecoin drives down storage costs through enabling more competition, small businesses will save money, which they can invest in jobs and R&D. Further, more small businesses would be able to afford the digital file cabinets needed to innovate in data-hungry new fields, such as virtual reality, healthcare imaging, and artificial intelligence. Second, and just as importantly, Filecoin will enable small businesses to compete directly in the cloud storage market. Today, Amazon is the largest provider of cloud computing through its Amazon Web Services division. This is actually Amazon's biggest business, accounting for more than 2/3 of Amazon's operating income with high margins. We hope that an open storage marketplace can help all the smaller and mid-sized players to compete more effectively, not based on brand recognition or large enterprise sales teams, but by competing on cost, speed, and security. We are not the only company using blockchain data structures to create open marketplaces for internet infrastructures, which we hope will decrease the power of today's large internet platforms. And some would say decentralize the internet. Others include new browsers, privacy-protective advertising exchanges, video encoding marketplaces, identity solutions such as mentioned by Ms. Dixon, and highly distributed computing. In sum, blockchains are novel data structures. They may be useful in many industries where multiple players prefer collectively updating records instead of relying on one central updater. One of those many industries is internet infrastructure, including our project, which we hope will benefit many small businesses, and there are many other use cases. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Amori. Mr. Harper, you're now recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairwoman Velasquez, Ranking Member Shabbat, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today, despite my woeful lack of Ohio roots. When I was counsel with the House Judiciary Committee in the latter part of the last century, I had the opportunity to collaborate with a lot of small business committee staff, so I have a lasting affection for the committee. I don't think any of those folks are still here, but I'm glad to see consistency in the leadership. I'm Jim Harper, visiting fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and senior research fellow at the University of Arizona James E. Rogers College of Law. Since I left the House in 2000, I've been a student of technology, including blockchain and cryptocurrency since 2011. In my time, I came to believe that you really have to understand a technology fairly deeply to gather what the consequences of the technology are and what might come from any regulatory intervention. So my written testimony is fairly heavy on blockchain as a technology, the processes by which blockchains are created, and the use of cryptocurrency in some cases to secure blockchains, such as when there are higher value uses or larger scale blockchain applications. I'm going to spare you that lecture here today. You should be happy to know that. And I'll skip to the consequences that I perceive for small businesses. You've heard from my co-panelists about specific implementations that illustrate the benefits of blockchain. I perceive them breaking down into 3 categories. One, already mentioned, is simple efficiency. Blockchains may allow various business functions to be conducted at lower cost. On the theory that each dollar saved is more precious to a small business than it is to a larger business, I think that's a distinct and important benefit for small business. Second, blockchains may allow for diversified and open market structures that support more niches and specialties. Because I like the example so well, I focused in my written testimony on an effort called Beef Chain. Along with saving on costs and losses when meat supply may be tainted, Beef Chain may allow small producers of specialty meats to serve national markets. What a boon for small businesses and consumers who might enjoy greater options than what's available through commodity meat production. Finally, I think blockchains may reduce the competitive advantage that large businesses have in the world of data. This relates pretty well, Chairwoman Velasquez, to the reference you made to the bigger players in tech right now. Large companies, not only in tech but throughout industry, have the resources and heft to set data standards for their industries. These standards may benefit the large industries themselves. And of course, they have access to more data about markets, products, customers, and so on. Blockchain can bring large communities together to create data commons, unowned, non-proprietary stores of data. These projects are more likely to have data structures that serve all use cases, including the uses of small business, and they may give small businesses access to data that they did not previously have. This would give them the ability to use advanced analytics and make other uses of data that are now reserved only to bigger businesses. So blockchain may lower barriers to entry and innovation. My friends in the cryptocurrency world may poo-poo the benefits of mere blockchain. The larger cryptocurrency projects may have world-changing consequences, and that's exciting stuff. But I think about it this way. The internet, when it came along, became an amazing tool for communication. When I left the Hill 20 years ago, I don't think even I imagined that we'd have video conversations on our handheld phones. I didn't think we'd have a language of emojis and GIFs that we use. I didn't think I'd be able to keep in touch with high school friends from 35 years ago the same way I keep in touch with my neighbors. All that is because of the communication medium that the internet created. Well, what the internet itself did for communication, blockchain and cryptocurrency may do for record keeping and administration. That means big changes in how business and government are conducted, big shifts in power, including, hopefully, lower power and fewer concentrations of power in society, including in those larger businesses. That's important, even if it's mostly still potential. There will be a lot of consequences to sort through. One could argue that the challenges we face in online privacy exist because the internet grew a little too fast for our society to absorb it. The net benefits are great, though, and they'll continue to accrue. The same goes for blockchain and cryptocurrency. They hold out substantial benefits for all sectors of society in the world. You are wise as a committee to be examining this now and making this committee part of the process of ingratiating the technology into society so that we can get the benefits from blockchain while controlling the costs and the risks. Thank you again for having me here today. I look forward to any questions you may have of me or my co-panelists.
Thank you. Thank you to all the witnesses for the great insight that you have provided to us today. Mr. Bigelow, small businesses often rely on third-party intermediaries or middlemen when conducting business. Can blockchain help eliminate multiple intermediaries in certain industry, thereby increasing efficiencies and reduce costs for small businesses?
Chairwoman, thank you very much for a great question. An example comes to mind from an experience recently that might shed light on how this could occur. So the short answer is yes. But take the example of I was in between meetings and I had to get from a meeting to an airport, as is commonly the case with my travel. So I couldn't take an Uber or a Lyft, so instead I arranged for a car service. And I was in the car and taking the car to the airport, and I started talking to the driver, and I said, "Oh, is this part of a fleet?" He said, "Oh, the owner started it, and there's 6 or 7 cars in the fleet." And I said, "Oh, how often do you cycle through the vehicles?" And he said, "Oh, more often than you think. We put a lot of miles on them." And I said, "Well, who takes care of that?" And he said, "Well, every time we have to sell the car, the owner gets involved, and he's got to go through the whole process." I said, "Well, what sort of involvement does that require?" He said, "Well, as far as I understand it, we sell 3 or 4 cars a year, and every time they do that, they have to go down to the DMV and take the title, convert the title into the new owner, or get the title from the lender if they just paid off the loan. And they spend anywhere from 3 to 4 hours either in line or getting to and from the location." And I said, "Does the owner also drive the cars?" He said, "Yes, he's a crucial part of our fleet." I said, "So for that, the totality of that time, that owner is out of pocket." And if you think about it, the owner probably makes somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $60,000 a year. If you presume that the cost of that time is anywhere from 3 to 4 hours per instance, and there are 3 or 4 instances per year, it's very easy to equate that to somewhere in the neighborhood of about $500 or $600 per year. That's 1% of their earnings. That's effectively a tax on that individual. With blockchain as the intermediary, immediately the car title can be shifted from the bank back to the owner. The owner can then give it to somebody else.
Are there any industry where this can have the most impact?
Well, it's self-serving for me to say, but I believe there are 2 places. Around car titles, the example wasn't by accident. This is the low-hanging fruit that exists right now in a place where the government can be helpful. Any place where there is a government-based vital record, if we convert that to a digital form, it will help all of the businesses around it. Banks in particular, and insurance companies as well, are particularly burdened with the cost of titles today. So vehicle titles is the first place.
Thank you. Ms. Dixon, for all small businesses, improving customer service is critical for success. How is blockchain technology being used by small businesses to learn more about their customers?
Thank you, Chairwoman, for the question. And what comes to mind immediately is our use of blockchain for identity management when we use facial recognition. So as you know, face recognition is becoming very big across multiple industries and everywhere in the world, really. And on our vending machine platform, we offer face recognition to understand the customer demographic profile, to understand male, female, approximately your approximate age and your engagement rate. However, the privacy concerns around, are you taking that person's identity data and using that for anything, that has been a big concern. And that is why we utilize the blockchain, so that when we do need to confirm that identity for a regulated product or for a prescription or alcohol, that we can verify they are a confirmed identity of age and able to purchase that product, but never take their identifying information. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't have much time left, and I would like to ask a question to Mr. Amoni. So do you believe that blockchain, the use of blockchain by small firms will level the playing field, allowing them to compete against the big tech, Amazon,
Yeah.
Google?
Well, that's definitely our hope, and I think it's the hope of several large investors in the country. Andreessen Horowitz and Union Square Ventures essentially have a thesis around using cryptocurrency and blockchain to compete with a large platform.
Thank you. And new industry allow policymakers to the opportunity to put in place rule and guidelines designed to increase equity and diversity. What can be done to ensure that communities of color and women are leaders in this industry and we do not end up with an old boy club that exists in sector like the financial sector? Yes, sir.
Well, I think there's a whole range of different initiatives that would cut across all venture capital. I think one thing would be to reduce the general risk around cryptocurrency and blockchain. There's several good rules that are being proposed, including tax fairness and clarity around securities. And I think if you reduce the risk, you'll get more money in, and that will go across the entire diverse American economy.
My time has expired. Thank you so much. The ranking member is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll begin with you, Mr. Harper. What, if any, challenges are there that may be discouraging or preventing any small businesses out there from adopting blockchain technology?
Well, there are many across a wide range. There's a lot of uncertainty. Blockchain and cryptocurrency are sort of category busting. They don't fit into the old boxes. I think most of the agencies are doing a creditable job of trying to figure out how old rules apply, and that's generally the case. Is that old rules probably apply, and they just have to figure out exactly how. There's little gaps where there might be challenges, but the lack of certainty around how existing regulation applies to various blockchain applications is probably a hindrance. Even today, I think the IRS is holding a session to hopefully do better on how it categorizes and how it works with cryptocurrencies, the value of cryptocurrencies. There are ways it's done right, which is establishing pretty much that cryptocurrencies are property and you get capital gains if you sell at a gain. And there are other cases where it's sort of missed and doesn't fit well with the technology. So there's a lot of certainty needs to grow up around blockchain and cryptocurrency so that people can move forward confidently.
Thank you. Mr. Moy, somewhat related to the question I just asked, is blockchain ready to be fully embraced, would you say? Or are there still areas that should be worked out before mass adoption?
I think it's ready. I think some of the areas that need to be worked out on the technical side is we really need to improve user interface and usability so that all small businesses could use it. On the legal side, as Mr. Harper mentioned, the tax treatment at the moment is very complicated. If you wanted to spend Bitcoin on a coffee this morning, you'd have to keep track what you paid for the Bitcoin and how much it was worth the moment you spent it and pay the capital gain or loss on every single transaction. Doing your taxes for crypto is the worst nightmare. And so if we could have a de minimis tax exception, which has been proposed, the Virtual Currency Tax Fairness Act, I think all of you should support that. And then we should also have a little more clarity around the CFTC's role versus the SEC's role. And they're both trying very hard, but more certainty would be very helpful.
Thank you very much. Ms. Dixon, did you make the right decision in turning down that $1.5 million from the Venture Capital Fund? I hope the answer is yes.
Yes, I appreciate Ranking
If
Member's
so,
question.
tell us about it.
No, it was an excellent decision because it allowed me to let other investors from around the community invest. So in the case of venture capital, that's one fund or a few funds that come together and they're accredited and they're already wealthy and they can invest. But using an STO, it allowed me to leverage friends, family, peers, social media, the community, our customers to invest at as low as $250. So instead of having 2 investors in a round or 3, we have 2,200, but the way that it's structured with the token is that it's considered as like a syndicate, so it's only one line item on my cap table, so it was a great decision.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bigelow, you mentioned the auto title function, and the chair mentioned some other businesses. Are there some other governmental agencies or functions that you could envision that either at the local level or state level or at the federal level that you think would make sense for for your technology that you've described?
There are. So, expanding on auto titles, that has an impact on not only the banking industry and the insurance industry when it comes to total loss, but it also has an impact on the way consumers can use that asset to either acquire a loan or some other purpose that it might have in their from the standpoint of their own value that they have as assets. But birth and death certificates are another great place to go. If you think about the example in my opening testimony, we do have a problem in poor and minority communities where those assets are very difficult to come by, and the time that's spent to acquire them often leads to missed work and sometimes can even lead to someone losing their job because they weren't there. It's a disproportionate tax on that person because the time they have to spend in line costs them much more as a percentage of their income than it does for someone maybe on this panel, any of us on this panel, to actually spend that time in the line. And so that is a place where if the government looked and said, you know, we should be digitizing all of our paper-based assets that are vital records, that would be a great use of time and a great benefit to society.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My time's getting ready to expire, so I'll yield back.
The gentleman yields back, and now we recognize the gentlelady from Kansas, Ms. Davids.
Thank you, Chairwoman Velasquez and Ranking Member Shabbat for holding this hearing. I know blockchain offers some pretty exciting possibilities for small businesses looking for security and autonomy, and so I'm really glad we're getting the chance to focus on this today. We've seen some pretty fundamental security issues with the internet and privacy issues. Sometimes the small businesses are particularly vulnerable to these things. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about just what kind of protections implementing blockchain technology in small businesses could provide. And, you know, I'm particularly thinking just about personal data. And so there's Mr. Bigelow, Ms. Dixon, you both have touched on whether it's facial recognition or our vital records. If you could talk a little bit about the future of privacy protection there.
I'm happy to answer that question, Congresswoman. Again, just storing the data on the blockchain and allowing the customer to grant that access to whether it's a retailer or you know, a doctor, or the customer, the individual has control over the data, and that is how they can use the blockchain. And a business can use the blockchain even as far as managing human resources and any sensitive information about our employees or about our customers. So that's what comes to mind immediately, is just, as Mr. Omori talked about, that ledger, that secure database that not one person controls. And that's really important as it comes to transferring data to multiple sources.
And to add to that, so if you think about your data today, it is being used by the large companies that the chairwoman referenced in her opening comments. The blockchain offers a path, as Mr. Omori mentioned. It's a ledger on which data can be stored, and because of the transparency often associated with public blockchains, you can see how that data is being used. In the in the permissioned world, which is where my company spends most of its time, it's the protection around that data that's crucial. Blockchain is generally not the issue when it comes to security. It's the applications on top of blockchain where there are vulnerabilities that are created. Blockchain itself tends to not be vulnerable.
And then, Mr. Omori, I'd just like to follow up because you mentioned earlier the need for probably additional user, the UX, the user interface, and how do we make sure that people understand? So if they have the ability to control the permissions or granting authorization, how far along are we in developing out, whether it's the apps that help people navigate that or the different businesses that are moving in that direction?
There are actually multiple attempts at the moment to do decentralized identity or sovereign identity. I don't think there's been a lot of uptake quite yet because I don't think we've solved the UX problems. But the question about security on the internet comes because when the internet was invented and created, it was a set of open protocols anyone could use, right? The internet protocol, the transmission control protocol, the SMTP, all these protocols for email and transmission. Security was not built into the protocols of the internet. Identity was not built into the protocols of the internet. And so a few large companies came along, and one of them kind of owns our identity on the internet, Facebook, right? Facebook is this giant database of all of our names and our friends and our relationships, and it's controlled by one company. And if you could take that database and make it an open blockchain where it's not controlled by one platform, but you could use encryption and authentication to identify yourself. And instead of logging in with Facebook everywhere on the internet, you could log in with Civic or some other blockchain application. You could actually take identity and make it open and not controlled by certain platforms. And you could do the same with security as well.
So, Ms. Dixon, I know in your testimony you mentioned having participated, I don't want to get it wrong, sorry, with a delegation of 25 industry leaders to address blockchain issues. And I know it was a Women of Color in Blockchain congressional briefing. And I'm curious if you can tell me if you feel as though we have done up to this point a very good job, or like what do we need to continue to do to make sure that we're opening those avenues up and hearing what's going on as it relates to small businesses and blockchain, particularly with women of color?
Thank you, Congresswoman. You're doing it here today by giving us all the platform to be here and speak on it, by giving us the opportunity to hold that briefing in October and just hear what we have to say, give us the opportunity to share. So my position is sharing the use case. Since we do not build blockchain like my fellow panel members do today, we use it. The things that they are building, we need. And I'm here to be a voice for all of the companies that are really excited about what Mr. Bigelow is building and Mr. Moore are building and waiting for us to be able to put those into practice. So by you doing what you're doing today, that you are doing enough, and more of this definitely needs to continue.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. And now the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Evans, Vice Chair of the committee, is recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Dickinson, I want to follow up a little bit on some of the questions, for example, that's been raised with you. Like, what are the other benefits for businesses considering using ICOs or STOs to raise capital?
Thank you for your question. And speaking from just personal experience, the benefit for our company was to be able to have a wider pool of investors. Mm-hmm. I live in Ohio. It's no secret I'm a Black woman, and I went to the Ohio State University, but that's not an Ivy League school. I didn't go to school to be an engineer, so my network was really concentrated from 20 years of being a business owner in the reputation I built in my community, and I wanted to be able to leverage those relationships to raise capital, and everyone was not accredited. And it came down to accredited versus non-accredited investors. So the benefit of being able to use a secure token offering, which I did not do an ICO, I wanted to make a distinction between a secure token offering, which is legal under the SEC Jobs Act Title III, and you can raise up to $1,070,000 a year, $1,070,000 a year under that way. And it really allows businesses to leverage their networks, their personal networks of non-accredited investors.
So do you think only certain types of businesses, such as tech businesses, for using ICOs or STOs?
So, the ideal type of business to raise capital in this way are high-growth businesses. So, of course, if it's a small business that doesn't have a 10x potential or above, they definitely can look into many other funding that is available. There's also other types of crowdfunding that exist that are not, inclusive of equity. So I would encourage businesses that have high growth potential to have the opportunity and the potential to return high investment yields to their investors. So those will be the ideal companies to do that. But it is an option for any business. However, the very extensive due diligence that's required, including financial reviews, including being compliant with many of the regulations around it, it's not just anybody can do it. So the SEC has definitely put things in place to make sure that the businesses are compliant, they're solid businesses, and they have great potential.
Do you have any concerns relating to the security of these type of exchanges?
Can you please clarify the question when you say exchanges, please?
In other words, you state that investor tokens cannot be sold because the SEC has not approved alternative trading system exchange. Can you further, in terms of the approval?
Yes, sir. So initially, when raising the secure token offering, which 2018 was the first year that this was legal under the Jobs Act, it was with the understanding that after a 12-month holding period, the investors would be able to trade those tokens on an ATS and be able to get liquidity earlier and not have to hold them for maybe the standard 10-year period that a venture capital or institutional investor would have to hold them. So since there has not been an ATS exchange approved yet for the trade of these secure tokens that companies like myself have done, the investors are still holding on to those tokens until that is approved by the SEC.
Mr. Harper, you have several years of experience. What are your thoughts on the security of these exchanges and what the government can do to improve security?
Well, the industry is young and it's new, and there are unfortunately a lot of businesses that are immature and actors that are immature, so it's right to be concerned about the security of exchanges, just like the security of any application provider. The question that came earlier about the security of blockchains and applications, I think, is very important. One of the advantages that blockchain has, I think, is simplicity. Blockchains, although they're a little bit complex, are really ultimately rather simple. They're also open. That is, a lot of eyeballs can be on the software and the blockchain itself, and that will cut down on security risks, though it certainly doesn't eliminate them. So a lot of the problem in the security has not been the blockchain itself, but it's been the applications on top of the blockchain, some of the smart contracts that people have tried to write to run on a blockchain like Ethereum. There are a lot of things to work out in this area, and so I don't think people should rush in, but be careful about the exchanges and about the applications that sit on top of any blockchain. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're back to balance my time.
Gentleman is back, and I would like to go to a second round and ask some questions myself, and then if the ranking member has any other questions, will be recognized for 5 minutes. So I would like to ask this question to the panel. What condition, and Mr. Bigelow, you mentioned, right, that we should incentivize state government to use blockchain and to deal with some of the paperwork and so on. So my question to you is, what conditions are needed to help encourage the U.S. government to realize the economic potential of blockchain technology?
So probably the easiest way to think through it is to look at examples. The Department of Transportation this past winter reissued their statement on the federal odometer statement. And what they did was they clarified that that could be completely in electronic form. Now, you'd think that e-sign from years ago would have already clarified this. You might even think that their 2016 revision would have already clarified it. But because titles are done at the state level, the federal government had to be very clear with their one piece of paper that happened to be within the titling system, but was federal instead of at a state level. They had to be very clear how it could be executed at the state level. That clarity is particularly important. By being clear, now states are able to move to a more electronic process around odometer readings. Further, the focus was not on the technology. They mentioned blockchain as a valid path to go down for this electronic record. However, what they did was they focused on the function, not the technology itself. This is also indicated in the Chamber of Digital Commerce's National Action Plan, where the real focus should be on function, not on technology. If our government can do that, we'll unlock a lot of value that is currently right now unable to be unlocked because the clarity is not there because people are focusing on the tech and not the function.
Thank you. Mr. Amori and Mr. Harper?
I'm not sure if this directly answers your question, but I believe that the U.S. government should embrace a digital dollar, especially if China embraces a digital renminbi. I think that'll help China compete with their New Silk Road Initiative and all their investments in Africa. And I think if we care about the dominance of the U.S. dollar, we should really think about what other countries are doing as well.
Okay. Mr. Harper?
There are a couple examples that I've come across of federal government agencies using blockchain, even just experimenting with blockchain, which I think has value because it'll familiarize people in the agencies with how blockchains work. At the Treasury Department, if my recollection is correct, they're using blockchain to track devices. So someone's issued a phone or a computer by the agency. Software in the computer or the phone is programmed to check in from time to time whenever there's a login and say, I'm here, I'm in the possession of my employee, the employee that works for the agency. What a great savings over sending someone around person to person to office to find, 70,000 different devices as a physical matter. So that's it. It's not the superlative use of blockchain, but it's the agency familiarizing itself with blockchain, and they'll find uses that really take advantage of the open data capability of blockchain. That is, things that they can put on the blockchain and make open so that people can see how the government is operating and see in real time what the functions of the government are. I think there's a real opportunity there for open government.
Thank you. The only thing that I would add as a business owner is just making funding more accessible to small businesses that use blockchain, and also making the barrier to entry easier for companies that would like to utilize token offerings.
Thank you. Mr. Chabot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hesitate to ask this question, but I will. Mr. Harper, you started out at the beginning saying that you weren't going to bore us with how this thing actually works technology-wise. And as you've noticed, this is being broadcast, and there are probably tens of people out there watching. And so for that one guy that's out there at home, or will see this down the road, that technology nerd, or the lady that's out there watching this that understands, her mom, she just said, how does it work in like just a couple of minutes, if you could?
I like to say the same thing, but a different way. I say, figuratively, thousands of people are watching. Think of a blockchain as an e-ledger. The blockchain name is kind of confusing and might be forbidding to people. We understand what email is. It's electronic mail. This is an electronic ledger, and it's a way that participants across the internet, or any kind of community that's created by Mr. Bigelow's company or Mr. Moore's, they come together and they post information that goes into a ledger. A block is essentially a ledger page. Cryptography and techniques that I'll insist on not describing here, because I'll probably get it wrong, but my written testimony might be a pretty good resource. People go to the Small Business Committee website and download it there. Cryptography ties the blocks together and assures that they aren't going to be changed, and it ties new blocks to old blocks. So you get a string or chain of blocks that become an authoritative record of whatever transaction or whatever event is recorded on that blockchain. So cryptocurrency like the Bitcoin blockchain, that is a blockchain that records transfers of this asset, and you have an immutable record that lasts forever. Thanks to cryptography, it's highly secure. There are always attacks and concerns about ways that immutable record could be undermined. But there's pretty clever cryptography that secures the blocks in and of themselves, and then secures the blocks together to make a chain. And it's kind of amazing, I think, to create a system for worldwide record keeping, worldwide administration. It's not owned or government controlled. It's not corporate. It's not governmental. It's people getting together and deciding how to do things. So it might be identity. We all exist separate from our driver's licenses. Honest, we do. And there are ways of doing identity that can prove relevant things about you without giving away your eye color, address, height, and weight. Mm-hmm. You need to prove that you're over 21. You need to prove that you've passed a certain security check. You could do so at the airport, for example, without sharing who you are and where you're traveling. They could be assured that you are safe without getting a big record of where everybody's traveled. So there's a lot of potential out there. That's not the complete technical description, but hopefully it gets people a little further.
Very good. And you can tell your mom you're welcome. So, thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Evans, is recognized.
You spoke about smart contracts in your testimony, and I'm concerned about the legal implications of using smart contracts. Can you please speak to some of the legal issues, such as jurisdiction when smart contracts are essentially borderless?
Yes, to be, I'll do a little bit of the technology behind smart contracts. A block captures events and transactions generally, but smart contracts, such as on the Ethereum blockchain, the notations in the ledger are actually code that can operate. And so in the example I give in my testimony is that, a farmer might want to insure against bad weather. They can set up a smart contract that grabs information from an oracle that is a reliable source. So if there's bad weather during harvest season, they get a payout that helps compensate them for lost crops, that kind of thing. So it's really computer code planted in the blockchain. They will operate automatically to carry out whatever measure people decide they want to do. Smart contracts is actually a misnomer. It's just code. A contract is when two people enter into an agreement and they have to carry out that agreement one way or another. The legal issues arise when someone decides not to or when they don't understand the terms of their agreement. This code executes the code, no matter what it is. Sometimes it goes badly, and there have been examples of smart contract code going badly. The legal issues, and I might invite Mr. Moore, also a lawyer, to chime in with others. The legal issues may include what the legal consequence of a given smart contract is in different jurisdictions. You could have someone in Asia enter into a smart contract deal with someone in New York, and things go wrong. How is that going to get resolved in courts if the Asian party believes that their laws should apply and the New York party thinks that their laws should? In a way, the internet, but especially blockchain, kind of lifts things off of territorial jurisdiction and opens really difficult questions about what laws apply, if they can apply at all in these kinds of situations. So it's a great question, and I have an incomplete answer, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Thank you for the question. So I think there are ways to address that issue. One, when it comes to a smart contract, let's say you and I have a smart contract, and if there's a crop damage because of weather, you'll pay me some insurance. If that smart contract executes, but there was something wrong with the deal or if there's a dispute, we could still go to the same courts. Right? You could go to the courts. Problem is, the money has already been prepaid. So if you believe in the Roman dictum that possession is 9/10 of the law, right? You just have to. You'd be the one who'd have to pursue the dispute versus me being the one who'd have to pursue the dispute and sue my insurance company. It might be the other way around, right? So the legal system would still apply. Now, if you're dealing with a system where there's Chinese and African and American and Canadian people all using the same blockchain, you could, in theory, write into the code a choice of law provision. So all disputes regarding the smart contract will be solved through an arbitration, right, if there's enough money involved. So there are ways to actually embed real law in the code that is the smart contract. But I agree with Mr. Harper, smart contract is kind of a misnomer. It's too highfalutin, it's just code.
Thank you. You're back.
Gentleman yields back. Well, let me take this opportunity to thank all of you for your testimony and for helping to shed light on the numerous applications of blockchain technology. Blockchain technology's ability to streamline processes, promote transparency, increase security, and decrease costs has the potential to transform the ways we do business. As these technologies continue to develop worldwide, we want to ensure that innovators and entrepreneurs have the opportunities to expand upon the enormous potential of blockchain technologies to support small businesses and spur economic growth. It is clear that there is a role for both businesses and government in enabling innovation. I look forward to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to address the opportunities and challenges facing the use of blockchain technology. With that, I will ask unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days to submit statement and supporting materials for the record. Without objection, so ordered, and if there's no further business to come before the committee, we are adjourned. Thank you.